Welcome back to Unapologetically Crunchy. What if your home was either supporting your energy or quietly draining it? That's what we're jumping into today. In this episode, we're diving into manifesting through Feng Shui, how to balance energy, health, and abundance at home using intentional, practical, simple shifts in your environment. Unfortunately, Carl was not feeling well during this episode, so it's just me. I'm thrilled to be joined by Karen McCormick of Graceful Energy. She's a Feng Shui expert who helps people transform their homes into spaces that truly support their well-being, vitality, and growth. Karen's interest in Feng Shui started around 2020. She just kind of felt like the energy in her home was off, which I feel like a lot of us can relate to back then. And so she was initially skeptical, but she ended up reaching out to a Feng Shui consultant to help her out. And the results pleased her so much that she decided to start studying Feng Shui. And here we are today. We talk about why decluttering is so essential for energy flow, how the Bagua Map highlights different areas of our lives, why the center of your home matters so much for health, and how small daily practices, like something as simple as just opening your front door with intention, can invite more opportunity and ease into your life. This episode is jam-packed with so many tangible tips that you can literally implement today. Most of these are free. It's just all about making simple, intentional shifts in certain areas of your house. Which, speaking of decluttering, Karen mentioned this in the episode, Feng Shui is not just for our homes. We can Feng Shui our cars, we can Feng Shui our electronics, we can Feng Shui the content that we consume, which if you guys have been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that I am very, very intentional about the content that I consume on a daily basis. And so before we jump in, I want to make a little announcement that I'm really excited about is we finally found a home for our Unapologetically Crunchy community, and that is on Substack. We just started a new Substack. It's crunchypod.substack.com. The links are in our bio on Instagram, on our website, pretty much everywhere. And we're really excited to connect more with our community here. So if you're interested, we send out emails every Monday with the podcast episodes. And if you want to dig a little bit deeper, you can subscribe to some extras and behind the scenes thoughts on each of the episodes, maybe even some bloopers here and there. And then I also send out 2 pieces of long form content every week. So one is called the Crunchy Edit, and that's going to be everything about the crunchy world, any trends, tips and tricks, anything that falls under the holistic wellness umbrella. And then on Fridays, I send out the Unapologetic Edit, which is just reflections on life, anything that falls under the spiritual umbrella, just anything related to what we talk about in the podcast and beyond. So it's really fun. I'm really excited. Please go and subscribe, connect with us. And you don't have to be on Substack to subscribe. Just go pop in your email and you'll be connected. The reason why I chose Substack is because, look, I love Instagram. Okay, Instagram's my ride or die. But it's cluttered. It's cluttered with content that I don't even ask for. I miss content that I want to see. And as much as I love it, I was really attracted to Substack because you can sign up for the exact content that you want to see without all the noise, without all the clutter, without the algorithms. And so that was kind of what drove us to choose Substack rather than just a regular email list. So anyways, please check it out. Please join us. Let us know your thoughts and let's dive in. Karen, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
So can you tell us how you got interested in Feng Shui and just how you got started into it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was really kind of during COVID. We live kind of halfway between New York and Boston. So my husband, up until COVID, was working in New York City and my daughter was in high school. And then all of a sudden we were all in the house together. And I know COVID was really challenging, but it was nice to kind of have that family time together. But as kind of life returned back to normal, my house just really fell off. And I gave everything like a good clean and I had a bit of a declutter, but it just felt kind of off and sticky and heavy. And every time I tried to do something, I'd like hit obstacles or, things wouldn't work. And then the washing machine would leak and then the dishwasher wouldn't stop working properly. And I was talking to a friend and sort of moaning about it. And she said to me, you need to speak to my Feng Shui consultant. And my view of Feng Shui at this point, it was very stereotypical. It was kind of everything very clinical, very white. And I really didn't understand what Feng Shui was. And I sort of said to her, I really think that's for me. And she said, no, you really should talk to her. So I did. And she explained that kind of it's really about working with the energy in your home and creating balance and harmony within your home so that you feel supported. And I kind of thought, you know what, I've tried everything else I can think of, I'll give it a go. I was still really skeptical. And we had the analysis done. And I took probably about 3 or 4 months to get everything that she told me I needed to put into place in the house. And then it didn't happen like sort of overnight, but it just was almost like our house had had this massive inhale and exhale and kind of released all this sort of sticky stuff.
Yeah.
And things just began to work more easily. And the things I've been trying to kind of make progress with, something would appear and, someone would call me back and everything just began to flow again. And about sort of 6 months later, I thought, the house just feels really nice again. And things just began to work for my daughter, for my husband. And it really was that sort of magic of Feng Shui. We'd kind of I'd reset the energy. I'd got everything aligned with what we were trying to do. So things just began to work. I was really surprised how different moving things around and putting like Feng Shui remedies in place, the difference that made. So that's kind of how I sort of discovered Feng Shui. So then I was like, I need to know more. So I did lots of reading. I watched lots of YouTube and listened to podcasts and decided that I would train and become a certified Feng Shui consultant. That's really how it started.
That is so cool because usually when people, and same with me, think about feng shui, you just think that it's kind of rearranging and not realizing that it actually can improve your life circumstances if it's done properly.
Yeah, and it's I think I always say to people, Feng Shui is not going to fix everything in your life. It's not like a fix all, but I think by creating an energetic environment that supports you, it just means things are more, even when things go wrong, you've got more support. You can sort of come to them with more ease. It's not, it doesn't stop those things happening, but you just feel more supported.
If you want to have like a peaceful, calm inner world, you got to have that in the environment that you're in the most. So it makes perfect sense when you think about it.
I found working with clients, I've sort of started with clients. Really, I did a couple of friends' homes as part of my course. And then, someone would say, oh, would you mind doing my friend? And would you? So that's kind of how it grew. I was like doing friends, and then it was friends of friends, and then friends of friends of friends. And then sort of people that, I just were referrals. And it really started more really to fix our home. I didn't really at that point envisage actually doing it for other people. But I think having helped us and then help other friends, you can really see the patterns, and the more you actually can focus on what it's getting really intentional about what you really want for your life and how you want that area of your life to grow, and then supporting that. And it's amazing how many people have then said, I did this and then that happened and then that happened and then something else happened. It sort of sets off this sort of train of opportunities and things that come your way. It's really interesting how even people who are very skeptical, like I was really skeptical, how it has made a difference, and things that I never thought I would do or have or be able to sort of experience, I have.
Yeah, definitely. I know. I feel like it kind of falls a little bit under that category of like, I'm doing quotes here, woo woo. And it actually, if you look into it, it really makes sense. So let's start at the beginning. Like for anyone who's listening who may not know what feng shui is, can you kind of explain that in simple everyday terms?
Yeah, totally. So Feng Shui really is, it's as simple as balancing the energy in your environment to support you. Feng is wind and Shui is water. So it is about balancing those two elements to basically bring prosperity and abundance. So if you think about the sort of origin, of Feng Shui, it was in China. It's agricultural. It's about having the right environment to grow the crops, to be abundant. So it's really about looking at your house. And when I do an analysis for people, I look at the exterior of their house to see where the support energetically is on the exterior, and then also looking at the inside of your house. And every house is unique. So based on where the house is situated, it has its own energetic imprint, just like we do. So by using the Feng Shui principles, I can assess what's going on energetically in your house, and then we can balance that energy with Feng Shui remedies. And those are just based off the 5 elements. So wood, water, metal, fire, and earth. And they're not big things, it's not like changing your whole house. It's about putting in place those small things that represent those remedies, and that helps balance the energy.
Wow, that's so cool. And okay, so I'm probably not pronouncing this right,
Okay.
but how would you explain what the Bagua Map?
Bagua,
Bagua.
the Bagua map.
Bagua.
That's basically that energetic map. So what you have is we divide your home up into 9 areas. So you have the center area, and that central area is kind of like the energetic hub of your home. So that's where all the energy radiates out into those other areas. And then you have the 8 surrounding areas. And I use a method of Feng Shui called Flying Stars Feng Shui. It's a traditional method. And what that does is it takes the cardinal and intercardinal points of the compass. So north, south, east, and west, northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest. And each of those areas in your home represents one like life area. So for that central area, that would be your health. That's physical and mental health, and also like your well-being, self-acceptance. And then the southeast, everyone always knows the southeast. The southeast is wealth, prosperity, and abundance. And then you would have like the east is family, community. So what we do is we look at those areas. So let's say a client comes to me and they want to really work on their physical health. We'd really focus on that central area.
Okay. So is it kind of like, I know that there is like a wealth corner. Is that kind of the health corner?
Yeah, the center is like the health corner, and then the southeast is the wealth corner. So if you were looking, let's say you were starting a new business, we'd probably look at the wealth area, and then probably the north area as well, because that's career and business and your life's journey. And then probably also tie in the south, which is fame, reputation, and recognition. So you can kind of work with the different areas for your goals and put those remedies in place to help balance the energy, and then that supports your goals and your intentions.
Wow. It's just like something that is so possible for anybody to do. So it's just awesome.
Thank
So,
you.
so what usually surprises people once they start looking at their home through the Bagua lens?
It's quite often, I think the nice thing about the Bagua and what I like about using that is that it gives you an opportunity to really get clear on what you're actually trying to achieve. I think quite often we say, we want to be happy or we want to be healthier, but actually what are you trying to really achieve, and get really intentional about what you want energetically from your space. I had a client the other day and she's going back to college to retrain. So we were looking at like her northeast area, which is like the study and knowledge area. And then she's kind of like, but I'm really worried about kind of, if I do this, what's going to happen to my, kind of the reputation I've built up in my current business. Because she kind of wants to add on to it. And it's kind of like, it's about getting really clear about kind of what are you trying to do and how does that cross over? Because I think quite often we have an idea of one thing we want to do, but actually then that falls into other categories as well.
Hmm.
And I think that's the thing I find with clients quite often, start with one thing and then halfway through they're kind of like, yeah, but what about that? And that quite often is something quite different.
Right.
So she really wanted to kind of grow this side of her business because that's where she felt there was growth in her business. But actually, it was so that she could spend more time with family. So you kind of need to tie that family piece in as well. And she hadn't really thought about that because that was really her real kind of goal for doing the change to her business to allow her more family time.
Yep. That makes perfect sense. And, that's so great that you bring up that point too, especially as we enter into the new year, clarity. There's so many times when I'm trying to think about like, how am I going to set up my new year? What do I want? And it's so easy to be like, oh, I want this, but like, you kind of have to have a clear mind so you can really think, like, picture yourself in that. Is that really what I want? So it's really cool that this is another way to kind of help you gain some of that clarity. Not to use
Yeah,
the
and
word so much, but
I think also as you go along with things change, don't they?
yeah.
And you achieve things. I hate New Year's resolutions. I hate that whole sort of concept of, new year, new you. And
Mhm.
I always say to clients, the Feng Shui calendar works slightly differently. The Feng Shui New Year, it follows the Chinese solar calendar. So the Feng Shui New Year is going to be the 4th of February in 2026. So I've been saying to my clients now, you need to think about what do you want to release from 2025 and what is it you want to build in 2026. And these things can shift. I mean, you can say you want to do something and achieve it by June. So then what in June do you then want to build onto? And that's the nice thing I think about coming back to those 9 life areas. You can, focus on one thing. You can, if you achieve that, then what's the next thing you want to add on? And you can switch and focus onto another part of your house or your home for that then thing that, that next goal that you've got. It doesn't have
Right.
to be static for a whole, for a whole year.
Yeah, right. I agree with that too. It's like we're on a totally different calendar. I think it's Gregorian calendar or something. So I love that. But okay, so I'm working on decluttering my house. I'm sure you've
Hmm.
seen like because I don't think it's recent, but there's been studies like about how clutter affects your mental health, especially women. And I have two little kids, and we have things that really build up in this house, like toys and all kinds of stuff. So I'm working on decluttering. What should I prioritize getting rid of to optimize the energy for a successful February 4th New Year?
Um, I always say to people, it's really not a very it's not a very attractive part of Feng Shui, but the two things that make the big difference in Feng Shui is cleaning, physical cleaning, energetic cleaning, and then it is decluttering. Everything in our house holds energy. Everything we're surrounded by holds energy. So really getting very focused on what surrounds you. It's hard with small kids because you've got all the toys and everything, but I really try and say to people, if you can kind of create just small spaces for yourself. Pick a space that you have autonomy over, that you can create space, and start with that. And then really looking at what you've got around you. Is it kind of helping you achieve what you're trying to achieve? So, for example, if I'm sitting at my desk, if my desk is covered in unpaid bills and invoices and things that I haven't dealt with, then that isn't really going to help me receive wealth and abundance.
Right.
So how you treat like your paperwork, photographs. I had a client recently and we'd done a lot of work on her family area. She's got small children. She was struggling to juggle everything, and she said, that's really what I want to focus on. And then we were talking about the center of her house, and she said, I've got all these old photographs. And I said, oh, she said, they're family photographs from previous holidays. And she said, actually, she said, there's lots of them from when I was a child. And we were talking about it, and it turned out that she used to go on these family trips when she was young with all her cousins to her grandparents. And it was very competitive. They used to have like these sort of events, like summer, like sort of games kind of
Mhm.
event things. And she found that really stressful. And she's got all these photographs sat in the middle of her house. And I said to her, yeah, they make you happy when you look at it? And she said, well, no, I used to hate going on those sort of, very competitive trips with my cousins. So we moved the photographs, and she said, it felt like in a week, it just feels different and it feels calm. And I've put a nice photograph of my family on a holiday we had last year where it was really fun and we really enjoyed it. And she said, everything just feels better. So it's being really actually observant about what surrounds you, and is that matching what you're trying to bring in.
Absolutely. It's just all boils down to awareness. Totally.
I
So,
think I think when you've got small children, it's really hard to kind of control all that because they have a lot of stuff and
yeah.
they put their stuff wherever they put their stuff. But I do think if you can just create small pockets of space and, at the end of the day, clear things so that you feel the house is calm and peaceful, I think that just all helps support you.
Yeah, I mean that's a good tip. And I know too one thing that I kind of struggle with my 3-year-old still she's kind of little, but my 4-year-old, he I want him to make a mess, like a creative mess when he's coloring and building with his blocks and stuff, but then I'm also want him to respect his space and his things and his sanctuary, if you will. And so it's like sometimes hard for me because I don't want to confuse him. I'm like, yes, you can make a mess, but then you have to clean it up. And he's like, well, I don't want to play in my room then if I'm going to have to clean it up. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, how do I navigate this?
It's very hard also for children because if you think about it, we have very defined spaces in the house where we do things. So, like, I mean, I've got a very small office, but I work from my office. The kitchen is where I cook and we eat. The living room is where we relax. But actually, for children, everything is all in their one room. They've kind
Yeah.
of got, they play, they sleep. When they're older, they do schoolwork. It's all in one space. And I've read a lot about sort of during COVID of that sort of work-life balance where you shouldn't be working in your bedroom, and that's a big feng shui no to kind of do anything in your bedroom other than sleep and rest.
I'm so
Um,
guilty.
I know we all do it, but that energetically you're bringing that energy then into your bedroom. But if you think for children, everything is in their bedroom, so kind of trying to create that calm space. And kind of keep things soft and gentle, allowing them the space to play and be creative in the things they want, but also allowing them that kind of that space that is restful and peaceful for them to relax and restore.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense. Or I guess you could probably like sometimes I put on their little Tony's classical music or something just to be calm for them. So,
Yeah, it's nice. At the end of the day, I think we all need that wind down, don't we? That time to kind of prepare for bed. I mean, it's like electronics in the bedroom. I mean, that's the other big no-no that I'm really guilty of.
yeah, TV or phone. I guess it's kind of like common sense. Like you probably shouldn't be working in your bedroom, but I do all the time. And now I'm like, you know what? I'm done. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I think I mean, I always say to people, if you can kind of create a boundary around it, I mean, if you do work, I mean, sometimes, I sit in the armchair in our bedroom and that's where I'm, got my laptop and that's where I'm doing. But I think if you can kind of close that down and create that boundary so that it doesn't carry over to when you go to bed, then, that is best.
Yes, I agree. So, do you have any tips for anyone who is trying to let go of things, but they're kind of attached, but they don't actually need it?
Yeah, it's really hard. And I think I always say to people, start, decluttering, start with the easy things. Start with things that I mean, good way of starting is like in the kitchen. How many whisks and wooden spoons and measuring cup sets do you actually need? I had 4 measuring cup sets when I checked the other day, and I use one. So
Right.
it's about kind of that duplicates is quite a good way to start in the kitchen. Anything that's broken is a good thing to get out of the house. That's creating stagnant and negative energy. So
Mhm.
things that are broken, that you either want to get them fixed or you want to pass them on. Um, I think I will say to people, if you start kind of with the easy things, but when you get sort of mementos and things that are hard, and I think quite often clothes are quite hard things to get rid of, especially if you spent a lot of money on something or you've bought it for an occasion, it's quite hard to part with. I always say to people, it's a good way of creating some space between letting go of the thing is a good way to box it up.
Mhm.
So I will say to people, box something up, write a date on it, like 2 months, 3 months, 4 months down the line, put a note in your diary and then store it somewhere. You can store it in the attic, you can store it in the basement. If you've got a dry shed, you can store it in the shed. And then when you get to that point in your diary, do you really want to keep it? And there are some things where I put them away and I think I really miss seeing that and I really want that. And I'll find it a new home somewhere where I'm actually going to enjoy it. But quite often, I can't even remember what is in the box.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I know sometimes people do like, okay, if I don't wear this in the next year, I'm getting rid of it. For me, what I started to do in my closet is if like I think about like the outfit, like if it's a dress or something, like where was I when I wore that? What was I doing? What part of my life was I in? And if it was in something that I'm just like doesn't serve me anymore, then okay, I guess I'm gonna let this go.
I think it's nice to let things. I think to let things go from your history, particularly like if you're trying to create, something new. Does that really align with what you're trying to create? I
Yeah.
mean, I had old suits in my closet. I mean, I haven't worked in banking for like 25 years. I'm not going to wear them again.
Right.
And it's just holding energy. And I think once you create a little bit of space, it was really interesting because my daughter was very resistant to clearing out her wardrobe. She came back from college one year. She suddenly said, it just feels like there's loads of stuff in there I don't want. And I think sometimes you do have to have that separation of space between actually getting rid of something. So I think, I like the boxing things up or moving things. Also, rotating coat hangers. I know it's an old trick, but if you actually rotate the coat hangers, so when you put something back that you've worn, and then you can see, like in a month's time, what you've not worn,
Oh,
that's
okay.
quite
Yeah.
a good way of working out what you're actually wearing. But
Yeah.
I always say to people, if you've still got a tag in it and you've had it 2 years, you're really not going to wear it.
Right. Yeah. That's good. So I saw on your Instagram that I was like immediately like, oh no, because this is in my house. I saw on your Instagram, which by the way, for you guys listening, graceful.energy on
Yes.
Instagram, you have great tips on there. I love your
Thank
account.
you.
So follow you guys. But so I saw that one thing you said could disrupt energy flow in the house is when you have a front door that's facing the back door.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh no, because that's how my house is. But I
So
can't
what?
move my doors. So how do
No,
I?
you can't. So what happens is that, in Feng Shui, the energy comes in through the front door. And I always say to people, it's the true front door. It's not. It doesn't matter which door you use to come in and out of your house. It's the architecturally designed front door. So we never use our front door. Our parking space is at the back of our house, and we come in and out through the back door. But every morning I come down the stairs and I open the front door. So just letting that energy in the morning for like 5 minutes, 2 minutes, doesn't matter, but just letting the energy in. So if your back door is then facing your front door, what happens is the energy comes in through the front and it goes straight out the back.
Right.
So what we have to do is kind of slow down and distract the energy. So simple ways of doing that is putting a plant by the front door. Plants in Feng Shui represent the wood elements. That's growth and opportunities and abundance. So having a plant near the front door. I haven't actually got room for a plant near the front door, but you can also put a rug. You want something like round or oval. That will just help slow the energy down. A crystal, you can use a crystal. I've got a big tourmaline crystal by our front door. That just helps ground the energy. Also, you can use you can buy them on Amazon. They're like a little tiny small multifaceted crystal, which you can hang down from like a light fixture or something. And that will just help attract the energy and send the energy around the house.
Okay, wow, those are good tips. Those are doable. Awesome. I'm going to try that and get back to you.
Yeah, please do. Let me know how you find it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what would you say is the most common misconception you see about Feng Shui in modern homes?
I think most people get very hung up on like where their wealth area is.
Yeah.
Where's my wealth area? And I've got to do something to my wealth area. And I think, to be really honest with you, it's really about creating, rather than putting things in place, it's really about creating that flow of energy around your house to support all the areas. So I will say to people the simplest things you can do, and doesn't take very long and it doesn't cost you anything, is opening the front door every morning, letting that energy in. It doesn't matter if it's a cold day, a hot day, a rainy day, a sunny day. You just want to welcome that energy into your home, even just for a few moments. And then it's about allowing the energy to circulate through. So it's opening blinds and curtains, letting the daylight in, opening internal doors so the energy can go all the way around the house, particularly rooms that you maybe don't use, or quieter rooms. So like we've got a living room, we don't sit in there all the time. So that's a quieter room. So I make sure I always open that door to allow the energy into that space as well. Turning on lights will also attract the energy. So if you've got like a room you don't use very often, you just turn the light on for, half an hour just to kind of help that energy circulate around. And what we're doing with letting the energy circulate around is we're moving anything stagnant or stuck, and we're picking up anything negative. So then at the end of the day, I just open my back door for like 5 minutes and then the energy goes out. So it comes in the front and out the back.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to ask you too. We have our back door open all the time. Like there's a screen just to kind of let fresh air in. I open the windows all the time too.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, getting fresh air and light into the house is the easiest way to refresh the energy. And anywhere that feels kind of a bit sticky or a bit stuck, you can always, I quite like burning incense or a candle. People don't. You can buy really good sage sprays, which you can walk around and spray, especially if someone's like asthmatic or doesn't like smoke. Music's a great way of shifting the energy. So playing something upbeat, clapping your hands. I would say to people, you've got like a dark corner, if you just go and clap your hands, that's a really good way of just stirring. You just want to stir the energy up so it's like circulating.
Right.
The only exception is bathrooms. Bathrooms in Feng Shui are draining of energy and opportunity and wealth. If you think about what we use a bathroom for, it's disposal of waste.
Right.
So you ideally want to keep bathroom doors closed. I know that's not always possible, but as much as possible, you can keep bathroom doors closed, toilet lids down. I spend my whole life closing toilet lids. And if you've got plugs that can be, seal sinks, that's great. But it's really any dripping water, dripping taps, leaking pipes, those things are draining. So you want to really get on those and get those fixed. But bathroom doors closed, every other door. My teenage daughter doesn't really like having her door open, but I just open it just for a few minutes each day. It's just to get that sort of feel of energy moving around the house.
Yes. That's interesting that you mentioned that about water because my husband Carl, he kept having these weird things happen with water around the house. Like there were leaks or like we have like a water delivery system and my son knocked over a 5-gallon glass bottle of water in our foyer. And now our floor, like he had to dry it out. He was like, why are all these water things happening to me?
Yeah, water symbolizes like the flow of wealth.
Oh,
so
okay.
if you've got like leaks, things like that, it can be like draining. But yeah, that's a lot of water to clear up.
Yes. Thankfully it hasn't happened in a while, but if we were getting weirded out for a minute, it was like 5 big things. We're like, what is happening? Or he was like filling up the dog thing and forgot about it and it overflowed in our kitchen.
I love that when that
like,
happens.
like weird stuff like that. But anyways, so luckily it hasn't happened in a while. So when you first walk into somebody's house, what is the first thing that you typically notice energetically? Do you go to the center of their house first, or
I start with the outside.
oh
I
right.
don't always. I do like in person consultations, but I do a lot actually remote.
Oh, okay.
I started doing a lot of the first ones I did were in person, and now a lot of them are remote. But I always look at the outside of the house first. So with the outside of the house, the energy is obviously coming towards your house. So I look at things like if there's a road. You have a busy road, you be on a quiet road. Are you living in a city? You're living in a small town. So what energetically is going on the outside? Because that obviously impacts the energy coming into your home. So we start with the outside, and then also what's like surrounding your house. So like at the back of your house, if you've got like a fence, trees, all these things offer support for the energy. So that's kind of where I start. And then really it is that entryway. I always say to people, if you want a really simple fix of how to get good energy into your home, give the outside area of your house a good look. Have you got trash bins, or what are you storing sort of just outside your front door? If you've got planters, are the plants healthy and growing? If you've got like dead plants and like leaves and debris, the energy is coming through all of that as it comes to your home. So it's about really getting a focus on what's going on the outside and where the energy is coming into your house, what it's having to go through to get to you. So that's kind of where we start. And then, yeah, it would definitely be looking at the center, the layout of the house, the Feng Shui, the flying star method of Feng Shui. It's like an annual energy. It's like a cycle over a year period. So I would look at when the house was built, when you moved into the house, who's living in the house. When we bought our house had been owned by two older gentlemen who used it really as a holiday home. They weren't here very often. So then when my husband, my daughter and I and the dog moved in, that energetically is quite different. So who's living in the house? And then what I do is I take the analysis of the stars, and that is what gives me that energetic map of what's going on in your house. And then it's about consultation with the client as to what their goals and intentions are. And then we work out which areas we want to focus on, or do we want to do all the areas within the house? So that's kind of how it comes together.
Wow, that is so interesting. What about for somebody who is a renter or in a dorm or an apartment? Maybe that feels limited.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, in terms of an apartment, apartments work slightly differently to houses. So with the house, obviously the energy's coming in through your front door. With the apartment, it's not coming in through the entryway. That sort of entryway, if you've got like a corridor, you've got elevators or stairs, that is kind of in effect your back door. So the energy in an apartment would actually be coming in if you've got a balcony door or if you've got windows. It would be kind of the way the building is facing the world. So it would be the windows or the balcony door. And really, with an apartment, it's interesting because obviously you've got other apartments surrounding you. So energetically, that can be impacting you. So if you are living next to a really noisy neighbor and you feel that's impacting you, then that's something that we can work with to kind of create a stronger boundary so for your sort of the energy contained in your apartment. But if you're like doing a room share, you can kind of divide the whole house up into those 9 areas, or you can actually take like your living space, like maybe your bedroom, and you can divide it into the 9 areas, or you can just kind of focus on so I had someone yesterday who's got, I think there was like 4 roommates, and we decided that we'd kind of like focus on her goals and kind of create like a sort of an area on her desk for like her intentions and her goals. And we put some tourmaline, which is really good for like grounding. As I said, I've got mine by the front door, but we've put that like by the entryway to her bedroom to kind of create that grounding and also that sort of protection from the other sort of occupants of her sort of shared space.
Right. Okay, wow. And so what about other areas of your life? Like, does Feng Shui work in a car or even like a purse or a phone?
Absolutely. I mean, decluttering your electronics is really, I did a post about this a while ago. I really do try and actually declutter my laptop and my phone. If you've got old things that are aligned with, I've I found a load of old documents. I mean, we all have to keep documents, and I think it's important. You can't just go and delete everything you've ever received. But I think it's important to be really mindful of all the electronic noise you've got coming into like your inbox. So going through that regularly, deleting old photographs, like duplicates, things like that. I think that's really important. In terms of, I do Feng Shui in my car. I've got crystals in my car. I sage spray the inside of my car. And also your purse, your money, your wallet. I think cleaning out your wallet or your school bag, work bag every week is really important to get those things out. We've all got those sort of things we carry around, like coupons or receipts. Being really mindful of how you're treating where you're carrying your money around, that's what's coming to you. So if I always carry cash, and I always line my cash up. I've got a small citrine crystal in my wallet, but I always empty out receipts, bills, credit cards. I was talking to someone the other day who'd got a couple of credit cards that were up to their limits. So that is not creating flow, that's creating a block. So moving those credit cards out of her wallet. You can put things that you have to keep that are like sort of receipts, maybe your tax bills. I keep those in a blue coloured folder. Blue in Feng Shui symbolises the water element. So that's more calming and will help dilute that energy. Whereas things like our bank statements, I keep in a green folder for the wood element to create growth. So for if I'm doing a new work project, that will go into a green folder. I want it to grow. I want it to be successful. Whereas something maybe that hasn't gone as well, but I need to hold on to it, I'll put that in a blue.
God, wow, those are great tips. That's amazing. Something just occurred to me too. I save all of my things on an external hard drive and I constantly back up just so I don't lose anything. And I'm thinking I have things on there for over 10 years. Maybe I'll just get a new external hard drive and put that in a safe or something.
I would never say to anyone, you have to clear everything out. I mean, I think when I first found Feng Shui and I thought everything had to be white and clinical, and I mean, you can see behind me, I've got books, photos. I mean, I like my belongings, but I really think it's important that the belongings you have and the things that you surround yourself with are in line with what you're trying to grow and build and the person you want to be. And I mean, I found I had a pile of old pay slips from when I worked 25 years ago the other day. I mean, why am I keeping them?
Yeah.
It's not relevant to what I'm trying to do now. And I think it is hard to get rid of things. And I think it's very important to have family photos and things that mean something to you and people who've passed or people you have fond memories, that's fine. But if something is really making you feel uncomfortable or is not giving you that feeling of that nice memory when you have it, when you look at it, I think it's really important to move it. You don't have to get rid of it, but move it and see how that then feels.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So back to kids for the parents out there.
Mm-hmm.
How does Feng Shui apply to children's rooms and nurseries for common things that children are challenged with sometimes, like sleep or emotional regulation?
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, I think the problem is they have everything in their room.
Yeah.
Their whole life is in that one room. They don't have those divisions of space and boundaries like we do. So it's really important to create that as much as we can. Feng Shui for like bedrooms. I mean, bedrooms really are for rest and restoration. So creating a space for them that is calm. I know kids like sort of bright coloured bedding and things, but that can be disturbing their rest and their sleep. So maybe having sort of a calmer, quieter colour that you can put over the bed at night when they're going to bed if they really want the red comforter. Also, sort of nice thing to put in children's bedrooms is like family photos and to really acknowledge their achievements. So I think a notice board with certificates and things they've had from school, sports things, so they can really see what they've achieved. The really big no-no is storing things under the bed if at all possible. I know space is often really tight, especially in children's bedrooms, but if you can just store soft, gentle things under the bed, not hard toys, not shoes, and really creating a space for them so they can put things from their busy day away when they go to sleep, so they're not kind of got that, like with, for example, like if they're doing maths homework and they're really struggling with it, if that is kind of out overnight on their desk, that energy is then impacting their sleep. So creating a space where they can maybe put their school books, their school bag, their clothes for tomorrow, just kind of clearing as much as possible to give them that space so that when they do go to bed, it's a calm, relaxed environment.
Excellent. That's an excellent idea. You actually answered the other question I was going to ask you too. What about, would you say, like, I know you just kind of talked about this with comforters, but we just had Christmas. Like, there's probably so many more toys in houses right now. So, how do you think like parents can balance the toys with the color and the personality without overwhelming the space? Maybe like rotating or something?
Yeah, I think it's about. I know it's really sort of difficult to sometimes get kids to actually clear their stuff out. And my daughter, I've got a basement with a lot of boxes in that has her stuff. So I'm not perfect and I've not got it all worked out. But I do think not kind of letting them just have this sort of pile of stuff, and actually rotating is a good way of doing that, and creating spaces. So maybe if you're going to do like arts and craft, maybe you're doing that like in the kitchen, so that kind of they've got that space to do arts and crafts in the kitchen, so that's not kind of then carrying over. And also I think with toys, I try, I know with our daughter, I used to try and kind of like pre-Christmas have some sort of mini clear out, a little bit of what the things she'd got and the things she'd outgrown, and finding somewhere and being really responsible about actually when we do recycle things. I found some toys, like some Christmassy toys the other day, and we really fortunate we have a free store in our village, so I took the things down to the free store. And I know quite a lot of the charity shops will take some toys, but really finding somewhere and passing things on. And I think that's good for kids to kind of get into that, we're passing this on, and I'm going to have something, have something different as you get older. But it is hard, and you don't want, they have a lot. I mean, I think compared to what we had when we were growing up, they have a lot of things. But I think the more you can do to kind of create that separation, so maybe their bedroom, they don't have the really activating noisy toys kind of, in the evening. Maybe they play with those in the morning, and then that gets put away, and then maybe in the evening, it's more kind of, it's quieter, it's maybe more creative and just calmer, sort of leading up to bedtime.
That makes sense. Kind of like Montessori toys in the evening are best.
Yeah, just
Leapfrog
something
toys
that
in the
isn't.
morning.
Yeah, it's just something that's not so. I think it's the activating. I mean, I think if you think about, the energy of things, and I mean, electronics is really hard. And my daughter's now 22, so I didn't have to go through. She didn't have like electronics until she was probably more coming into her teens. But I think, electronics, they are really activating. I know in the evening, if I leave my phone in my office and I read a book before I go to bed, I sleep much better than if I sit and scroll my phone before I go to bed. I know that. I don't always choose to do it, but I know that. And I think with children, just creating a nice space for them where they do feel calm and protected and safe when they're going to sleep. And I think photographs, family photographs by the bed are nice. I think if they've been to like sports things, they've got like their sports clothes and things on the floor, all that energy that they've brought in, that's still in their space at night when they're going to sleep.
Right, right. And what about pets? Are there things that we can do to kind of enhance their health by Feng Shui?
That is a fantastic question. I just think we all have energy. They feel energy. I inherited a rescue dog, and she's particularly neurotic and particularly itchy, I would say. And she picks up on the energy in the house. I mean, we sometimes will laugh because, I'll be having a conversation with my daughter, and I think we're having quite a calm conversation. And she'll say, it's getting a bit itchy. And the dog, she's reacting. So yeah, I think they very much are picking up on the energy.
So, for my fellow pet owner, off air, Karen and I spoke a little bit about how Feng Shui can affect pets in the home. She said that pets are actually really wonderful carriers and movers of energy. Rather than disrupting Feng Shui, they actively participate in it by kind of keeping the energy circulating and helping to prevent stagnation, which I feel like makes total sense. She also said that animals are a little bit more sensitive to energetic shifts than we are. So they tend to be kind of more closely synced with household rhythms. So if a pet's behavior suddenly changes, it can be helpful to kind of take an audit and see what you changed in your home environment. Maybe it was like a new object. Maybe you rearranged furniture, maybe there's a new scent. All of these can influence a space and in turn affect our pets. Something else to be kind of mindful of with your pets, they will often avoid certain areas of the home that might be a little bit stressful for them, whether it's like noise, unsettled energy, anything like that. So she mentioned a few tips. So number one is to adjust the space for your pet. If they keep knocking things over, reduce clutter at their height. Maybe if you have plants or something like that that are at their height. In this context, which can signal overcrowded energy. I thought that was a good tip. And then another tip she gave was to let your pets choose their resting spot. So make that area as comfortable and supportive as possible for them. Very calm. We all want calm, right? No different for animals. And then the placement of their food and water bowls, she says to make sure that they are in a calm corner, away from pathways. She even mentions to consider putting their food and water against a wall so they feel safe and supported and protected while they eat and drink. Feeding at regular times also helps routine and just kind of keeps them calm. I have to work on that because our dogs definitely have open access to their bowls. And then cat litter boxes. They are literally a bathroom for a cat. So she says to just keep it clean, ideally kept in the bathroom and refreshed regularly to prevent any of that stagnant energy buildup. And of course, something that is probably pretty important to you, as it is to me, is when possible, always use natural materials for their food bowls, their toys, their beds. These are all very grounding and soothing for pets. And from a crunchy standpoint, we always try to opt for the most natural option whenever it's possible. So I thought those were really good tips she shared. So let's get back to the show.
I would like to talk about these 4 popular categories and just get a couple of general Feng Shui tips for these manifestations. So the most popular one, of course, is going to be financial abundance. So tell us about the wealth corner and how to enhance it for prosperity.
Okay. Yeah. So the wealth corner is the southeast of your home. It's very easy to find the southeast area of your home. It sounds much more complicated than it is. The best thing to do is to use a compass or the compass app on your phone. And you really want to start in the center. So the center of your home really is the center of your home. So go to kind of where you think the center is, put your arms out, spin round, and that's kind of your center. So you want to start there, and you want to put the compass flat on your hand, and you want to turn till you hit the southeast. And then if you walk in that direction, that will give you the southeast area. I'm always happy to help people if people I've got a rough floor plan of their home and they kind of, halfway there with the compass. I'm more than happy to mark things up for people and help them find the areas. But the southeast area, it's wealth, prosperity, and abundance. And the first thing we need to do is to give that area a clean. A physical clean and then energetically clean, either with some incense or sage smoke, candle, music, whatever you like. Fresh air is a great way just to stir up the energy. And then good things to place in that southeast area. The southeast area is connected with the wood elements, so that is growth. So you can put a plant in that area. If the light doesn't really work for a plant, you can put something green. It can be a green vase, it could be a green sort of pot, it's something ornamental. It could be a jade crystal. Jade's really good for luck and opportunities. And then what I will say to people is it's really about getting intentional. What in terms of wealth are you trying to bring in? So you can write an intention. And when we write an intention, we always write it in the present tense. So what we're actually trying to get is manifesting is what we've already got. So wealth and abundance flow to me with ease is a really simple, easy one. And then you want to put that intention in that area with your plant or your green object, and you can put something that represents wealth to you. I've actually got some money, but I've also got a postcard from Rome because we are saving for a holiday to go to Rome at the moment. So I've put my postcard of Rome. So, and it could be anything. It could be a picture of a house, it could be a picture of a car. If you kind of want, 2 weeks off work and that feels like abundance to you, put the 2 weeks you want off on your calendar and say vacation and put that, whatever, it doesn't have to be money, but putting that there. And I also like a crystal. Yellow citrine is really good. That's a kind of a good crystal for wealth, but also pyrite. Pyrite's a really nice crystal. It's very bright and shiny, very can-do, and that's good for that energy. But it's about getting the area clean and then getting the energy clean and then putting in place what represents wealth to you.
I love that. And you know what that reminds me of is you might have heard this because I think it's kind of circulating around social media, but Jim Carrey, how in the beginning of his career, he had put a $10 million check. He wrote it to himself and put it in his wallet to kind of manifest that. And whenever he, this was before he was big. So it's immediately reminded me of that. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I did have a question too. I was wondering, when you're looking for the corners of your house, is it the same up and downstairs?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And actually, if you've got, so like in our house, we've got a basement. So like when ideally with the Feng Shui remedies, if you do an analysis, you'd put the remedies on all floors. So I've got remedies on all 3 floors. Yeah, it's the same.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. All right, awesome. And I was wondering this because I actually think I saw this on your Instagram too about dried flowers.
Yeah.
So when we talk about plants, because I know sometimes with my plants, I'm like, oh my gosh, some of them will die, and I'm like, got to get that out like immediately. But I never thought about dried flowers because those are so pretty. So it's good to know that that's probably not a good idea.
They're beautiful, but they are dead energy. They don't hold energy, and they also do tend to collect dust. So then that's stagnant. That's creating negative energy. I mean, I think it's really about intention. And I had someone the other day who had got a dried flower arrangement from their daughter's wedding, and she said, every time she sees it, she remembers that lovely day and her daughter and her husband's relationship, and it's really important to her. And that's very different to a bunch of dry flowers that you kind of are ornamental and you're just kind of walking past them every day. So right. I think I again, I'm never going to say to you have to get these things out of your house.
Yeah,
I'm going to recommend what from a Feng Shui perspective works best, but it really is important to hang on to things if it's something really important to you. But yeah, dried flowers, cactuses, anything really sharp and spiky, that's not creating good energy.
No.
You want upward growing plants with nice green leaves. Really, that's the ideal thing you want.
Oh, I love cacti.
Sorry. Spiky,
okay.
and they're like sharp, and it's cutting the energy.
Yeah. Okay, and so I also read too, along with things that can stop abundance or anything, probably is anything that's like broken, or just damaged in any kind of way.
Broken and damaged items are creating stagnant negative energy, and it really is best to move them out. It's it's difficult, and I know people have got like their favorite like mug or something, but it's got a chip in it. It's creating negative and stagnant energy. So
right.
really, it's got to go.
Kind of like what you just mentioned, even if there was like a chip on the mug, it's like, well, it's kind of like with the dried flowers. If it brings you so much joy and that overpowers it, okay. But if you're just like, whatever, then it's probably best to get rid of it. Yeah, that makes sense. So how about health and vitality? So how does our home impact our nervous system, our stress levels, any sense of safety in the body?
Yeah, so that would really come under the center. I think that the center of the home, that's really the hub of the energy. That's really where the energy like spreads out into the rest of the space. So, if you've got the center of your home, the center of our home is our coat closet. And if our coat closet is stuffed full of coats and shoes, and it's all kind of like just thrown in there, energetically, that's creating a big block. So, clearing things out, keeping space in the center. The other thing I'd say about the center of your home is you don't want to burn candles in the center of your home on a regular basis. If you're using a candle to clear energy, that's fine. But if you are burning a candle in the center of your home regularly, then that in effect you are burning through your health energy.
Ooh, don't want to do that. That's for sure.
No, so burning candles in the center is a bit of a no-no. But it's really about creating space in the center and being really mindful of what is in the center of your home. I mean, it's our staircase and our coat closet and the hallway. So it's nothing very exciting in the center of our home, but it's about keeping that area really clear so that the energy can radiate out to the other spaces.
Right. That's similar to our layout too, so that's good. What about in the kitchen? Does Feng Shui apply to kitchens in our relationship with nourishment?
Absolutely. So in Feng Shui, the kitchen is kind of where, and the stove in particular is where the nourishment and the abundance comes into the house. So I always say to people, a really quick, easy way to bring in more abundance is to wipe down the top of the oven. And I spoke to someone the other day who said they didn't really believe me, but they'd done it and they had the 2 best days in their business ever, having done it for 2 days. So, but yeah, the stove represents abundance. But if you think about the kitchen, so that stove is kind of like fiery energy. And then you've got the sink, which is kind of water energy. And then you've got the fridge, which obviously is like generally they're metal, and they've obviously got water from like the cooling system. So you've got all those kind of conflicting energies. So you've got the fire and the water. So balancing that depending on where your stove and your sink are. So if your stove is then facing your sink, then that kind of energy that's going to be imbalanced. So we can balance that by using the wood element, because then the water feeds the wood and the wood feeds the fire. And kitchens tend to be quite it's more a yang, a stronger energy. So it's where we tend to gather. And the other thing I'd say about kitchens is knives. Knives, but like back to your cactuses and the spikes, knives obviously can cut energy. So if you've got like your knives out on one of those like strips above the oven, that will be cutting the energy. So I always say to people, it's best to keep knives in a drawer or a knife block, so they're not actually out on display. And keeping counters as clear as possible. I mean, we all have, I've got a coffee machine, I've got a toaster on my counter, but trying to keep counters clear, keeping that space so the energy can circulate round.
Yeah. And I always notice too, our counter space gets cluttered very quickly because of everything that we have, like artwork and everything like that. And every time I just like take everything off, immediately like my whole being feels better.
Yeah. I think kitchens, it's just, I mean, our kitchen is kind of where we have like, I think every house has like a clutter zone. It's that one space where everything just ends up, and our kitchen's like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's easy for it to get like that. Okay, so love and relationships.
Love and relationships. So it's kind of two things. One, it's the southwest area of your home. That is love, relationships, and marriage. So yeah, it's the same thing. It's giving that a clean, giving that an energetic clean. If you want to write an intention, maybe an intention. If you're looking for a new relationship, wanting to strengthen an existing relationship, you can put an intention here. I like rose quartz crystals are nice here if you like crystals. I love crystals, I've got them everywhere, but rose quartz is nice. But if you are going to put a crystal in this area, you definitely want to have two, one to represent each person in the relationship. And the other thing with love is definitely the bedroom. So it's things we've talked about. It's not having things under the bed. If you have to store things under the bed, spare sheets, towels, soft things, that's fine. But you really want the energy to be able to circulate round the bed. Ideally, the bed would be against a wall with a firm headboard. And also you want to create space. So you really want the bed to have, if you're going to have bedside tables, you want to have one each side, and you want space. I was talking to someone the other day who was wanting a new relationship, and her bed was actually pushed up against the wall. So she could get in and out, but there wasn't actually space for anyone else to get in and out. So energetically, you want to create that space. Maybe a little bit of space in the closet if you're wanting a new relationship as well, creating space for someone else to actually be in your space. So it's bedrooms as well, keeping bedrooms really calm, and you want that more yin, quieter energy. So dim lights, nice soft colors. You don't want anything too strong on the bed, no reds and purples. You don't want those fiery colors. You want those nice soft colors, just to help create that calm, inviting environment.
Those are great tips.
Thank you.
Yes. And then last but not least, career and purpose. What do you think about that?
Career and purpose. So that would come under the north. The north is career, business, and life's journey. But I like to kind of include other things within that as well. So I mean that you can, in terms of like your career, for like something like my business, for growing my business this year, I will put an intention in the north. But I'll also incorporate the south, because that's like your reputation, recognition, and fame. And I will say it's not like Taylor Swift fame, it's kind of fame within what you're doing.
Right.
It can be Taylor Swift fame, but it's more the fame and recognition in what you're trying to do. So yeah, it's really about getting intentional about what you want. In terms of my business, I would probably write down, that sort of, what my goals are for like clients and, consultations and like growth on Instagram, those things, getting really kind of what is it you want to bring in, and then writing those intentions and placing those in those areas. But you can use nice visuals and things for that too. So my daughter at the moment's applying for internships this summer, so she's taken some photographs of the places that she'd like to go and work, and written about that sort of the internship, what she'd like to achieve, and putting that in that area as well. And you can involve your children. It doesn't have to be just one person in the house. So like my husband, I'll ask him what his goals are for work, my daughter what her goals are for next year, and you can include everybody. I mean, even little kids, what do they kind of want, if they're studying for an exam or something, you can incorporate that as well.
Right. Okay. So like my little boy wants to learn reading. So that's a good thing to implement too. I love that.
That's so exciting. I love reading. I'm not a good, I'm not, I say I love reading. I do like books, but it was never my thing. I was never really into books, but my daughter is hugely into books and she reads a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how me and my husband are too. Carl's like doesn't really he'd rather listen and then I'd rather read. So, okay, let's do a rapid fire. 5 to
Okay.
10 seconds to answer these. One thing listeners can do today that would instantly improve energy in their homes.
Open the front door.
One feng shui shift people can make today without buying anything.
Wiping down your oven, the stovetop.
If someone can only feng shui one room, what would it be and why?
Bedroom, because I think rest and restoration and that peace, that is the most important thing we can give ourselves.
What is the most common household item that people don't realize drains energy?
Clutter.
Okay, last one. One daily habit to keep energy flowing and support manifestation goals.
Opening the internal doors of your house and letting the light in. Sorry, that's G.
Yeah. And do you have any beloved books or resources that you want to share?
I have two. I actually dug them out. I have this one here, which is The Calm and Happy Home by Kimberly Gallagher.
Oh, wow.
I did one of her workshops about a year ago. And she really is a great feng shui teacher, and she just has a really good approach. It's very modern day. It's not too woo-woo. But she's just really, and it's very achievable. There's good tips in the book. It's very straightforward, and it's great if you just want to get a really good understanding and work with your home. And then the other book I have, which I love, is called Simple Shui for Every Day, and it's by Amanda Gibby Peters. And this is just like a little thing you can do every day, and they're great. Again, it's little tips. She has a load of content. She has an amazing blog. I did a workshop with her back in the summer. She's just really interesting and just very approachable. And I think the thing about feng shui is it sounds, because it is so old, and if you buy some of the really sort of more traditional books, it's very complicated and it just feels very unachievable. And that's the thing I think that I really have enjoyed learning about, is how you can actually apply it to modern day living, and in a way where you're not having to throw out everything you own and start again. It's working with what you've got, the space you've got. Most people don't have a square or rectangular house. There's bits missing, or our front door opens onto the stairs, which in feng shui is a no-no because the energy goes straight up the staircase. But it's about working with what you've got. We can't all flip our houses so they face a different direction. It's about being realistic.
Right. I didn't know like a whole lot of feng shui until I was like, I need to declutter this house. And so I started looking for tips, and that's how I came across you. And I thought that your posts that you do make it so much easier to understand. And speaking to you on this podcast too has helped me understand it even more also. And it's just kind of like, whoa, I can't believe I'm just learning this. I wish I had been doing this.
Yeah, and I think that's really why I started the Instagram. Instagram's not something that I'm particularly I don't find it very easy, and I don't the post that it's complicated, but I think it's a really good way to connect with people. And I always try and answer questions. So, I mean, people send me a question, I do try and answer it, and I'm like happy someone sends me a floor plan, and you don't need to go to the expense of having someone draw up a floor plan. It can be you can draw it out on a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be to scale, but it's just to give you the idea of where the areas are. I'm always more than happy to sort of share my knowledge and what I know and help people. And I know an analysis is a big expense, and it's a big time commitment. You're not just, it's not just giving you a to-do list, and you then put everything in place and it's done. It's about, cleaning things. It's about clearing the energy. It's about getting really working out, intentions and decluttering. And there's a lot to do with it. And that's not, not everyone wants to spend 5 months, 6 months kind of going through a whole process. But I think there are little things that we can all do that make things better, and that can help and support us and just shift the energy in a good way. Even moving the furniture. I'll say to someone the other day, if you walk into your living room, just move everything an inch. That will stir the energy out. It'll change it.
That makes perfect sense. So, how can people work with you, and where can everyone find you? I know we talked about your Instagram a little bit.
I'm on Instagram, and that is graceful.energy. I have a website, thegracefulenergy.com. You can email me. It's Karen@thegracefulenergy.com. I offer packages in terms of analysis, but I also offer calls for anyone that's got like questions. I can do a half hour or an hour, and you can just ask me questions. I always send a follow-up email with what we've discussed, and I'm happy people just want to reach out on Instagram with a question. I try and answer questions. I just try and be very sort of available as much as possible. But the analysis is, I offer sort of two levels. One is if you've got like a particular life area you want to work on. So for my client who wanted to, I've got a client last week who is looking to get a promotion at work. So we were looking at how we could energetically support that. And then the other option on the analysis, rather than just focusing on one area, is to do the whole house. And that's good if you're kind of, if you've moved to a new house, or you're in a house and it feels a bit stuck, or things have changed. I mean, energetically for us, obviously, everyone being in the house in COVID, the house was just full of energy, and that's just why it felt stuck and sticky and heavy. But then obviously when my daughter went off to college, my husband went back to working in the city, it's just back to being the dog and I. It felt weird, and by rebalancing the whole house, I've got it back to feeling energetically good.
Yeah. And that just kind of brings up, I just was wondering this really quick. I used to live in New York City, and it's like insane there. Does your husband kind of like, when he comes back, does that energy come with him in the house?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What do you do to...
Actually, I've got a really good little tip, actually, and especially after the holidays and we've all had people in and out of our house. If you've had that kind of sort of everyone in the house, and I do this, my husband knows I do this, I sage smudge a lot, especially when he leaves. Like when he comes, and especially he's working from home this week, so at the end of this week he'll go back to working in the city and my daughter will go back to college, so I will sage smudge the house. But a really simple, easy thing to do, and I think I've done a post about this, is a salt cure. And you can just take a bowl, and it doesn't have to be a fancy bowl, just be a regular bowl, and put salt, just like regular salt. You don't want to use table salt because it's been very refined. You just kind of want like sea salt. That's like sort of crispy, chunky salt. Or you can use Himalayan salt, you can use Epsom salts, you can even use rock salt, but you just want a bowl of salt, and you can leave it out in the middle of your house or on the kitchen table overnight, and that will absorb negative energy, and it just helps clear.
That's such a good tip.
But you need to then get the salt out of your house. And I get into trouble with this because I tip the salt. I've got a gravel drip line outside our house, and I tip the salt outside. But don't tip it in the garden because I know it's not good for the soil. So you can either flush it down the toilet, you can rinse it down the sink, or you can put it into the garbage and then just take the garbage out. But the salt will absorb anything negative, so you want to get that then out of your house.
Wow, that's such a good idea.
Yeah, but a salt cure is really good. You can actually, I put quite often, if I've got essential oils, if I kind of feel the house feels in need, like this week I'll use like lemon oil because that's kind of zesty and it kind of makes it smell a bit. Or you can use like lavender if you want a bit of calm. But if it's good, if you've had sickness in the house, if you've had a row or an argument, if it's been like friction over the holidays, if you've had a lot of people in the house, if it just kind of feels a bit heavy, a salt cure is a really good way of clearing the energy.
Oh, well, since Carl's sick, I will be doing that when he's better.
Absolutely.
And I was going to ask you one more thing too. I was curious. I actually just got some sage spray not that long ago. I think the brand is From Molly with Love, I think. But do you have any favorite brands of good sage sprays?
I've got a really good sage spray. It's it's on my desk. It's Moon and Stone. They sell crystals. Two lovely ladies, and they do a smudge spray. And this one smells lovely. I like that one.
Oh, I love it. Awesome. Yeah. I will post that on the Instagram too.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I just want to thank you so much. It's been so fun talking to you. This is so interesting, and you explained everything so well. I think the listeners are going to resonate.
Thanks so much for listening. If you'd like to follow along with us, you can find us on Instagram at CrunchyPod and at Unapologetically Crunchy. We have the same handles on TikTok too. And check out our websites at crunchypod.com and unapologeticallycrunchy.com. And if you have some tips and tricks you'd like to share with us, feel free to DM us or contact us on the website. And one more thing, if you love our podcast, please consider sharing with every single person you know who would love it. And leave us a review. Oh, and you can tell them to leave a review too. We are so beyond grateful for your support. Thank you so much. Peace, love, and crunch.